I will murder you.
So I guess the girl went to the hospital and she died.
I will murder you.
I will murder you. I will murder you.
The words were screamed over and over again. A cell phone camera captured the confrontation as chaos unfolded in the parking lot of an apartment building. I will murder you.
I will murder you. I will murder you.
Another voice laughed. As a woman cried out in pain, someone shouted, "He didn't even want you." At first glance, it looked like a fight. The kind of fight that police officers respond to pretty much every single day. The kind of fight that people record on their cell phone and upload to social media every single day. But this fight was different because within hours, somebody would be dead. And the video recorded for entertainment would become evidence in a homicide investigation. Tonight's case shocked an entire community. But like every crime, there was a reason. Welcome to the Voice of Reason. Most homicide investigations begin with the simple question: why? Why would you hurt somebody? Why would a disagreement become violence? Why would violence become death? In this case, the answer would begin with the secret. 30-year-old Ashley Bocanegra appeared to be living a normal life. She was married. She had a family. She had responsibilities. To most people around her, there was nothing particularly unusual about her life. But hidden beneath the surface, there was a relationship that very few people knew about. Ashley became involved with a man named Daniel Gonzalez. The issue is that Daniel wasn't single. He was in a long-term relationship with a woman named Antonetta Stevens. Antonetta had no clue what was going on behind her back. At least, not at first. You see, affairs have a way of creating a false sense of security. The people involved often believe that they can keep their secret forever. They convince themselves that nobody will find out and nobody will get hurt, that they can control the situation. But secrets rarely stay hidden. Eventually, someone sees something. Someone notices a text message. Someone overhears a conversation. Someone asks a question that doesn't have a good answer. And when that happens, everything changes. And for Antonetta Stevens, that moment had arrived. She learned that Daniel had been involved with another woman. Not just any woman. That woman was Ashley Bocanegra. And that discovery hit her like a freight train. Suddenly, every late night, every strange behavior, every suspicious moment, every instinct she had tried to ignore, all of it made sense. The man she built her life with had betrayed her. And the woman that he betrayed her with finally had a name: Ashley. For many people, discovering infidelity can create a mixture of emotions: sadness, anger, humiliation, even confusion. But for Antonetta, those emotions began to intensify quickly. According to interviews, the relationship between her and Daniel already starting to see significant problems. The affair didn't create those problems. They only seemed to amplify them. Every small thing became significantly more brutal. Now every argument began to carry extra weight, and every disagreement became significantly more brutal. Every conversation became more explosive. Then came the encounter that pushed everything over the edge. The night before the fatal attack, Antoinette and her 17-year-old sister-in-law, Janine Gonzalez, were walking near a convenience store at the same time that Ashley and Daniel just happened to be nearby. Now, this was an unexpected meeting, but as you can imagine, the recognition was immediate. Antonetta had been told what Ashley looked like. Now, she was standing directly in front of her. the woman that she believed helped destroy her relationship, the woman she believed was helping Daniel betray her. The confrontation began immediately. Voices were raised, accusations were exchanged, emotions boiled over. But eventually the argument ended. The two groups were sent on their separate ways, at least physically. But understand, emotionally, this was far from over. Because while most people would have gone on and tried to cool off, Antonetta's anger continued growing. And throughout the night, she replayed the encounter over and over in her mind, like the affair, the humiliation, the betrayal, and every thought kind of added fuel to the fire. And sometime during those hours, something changed. There was no longer about hurt. It was becoming sort of a realization. And that realization was retaliation. The following morning, events started moving towards what would be considered a tragic conclusion. Investigators would lately discover that evidence showing that Daniel's phone had been used to communicate with Ashley. But Daniel wasn't the one who was sending those messages. Antonetta was, pretending to be Daniel. She sent messages designed to pull Ashley into a meeting. Messages suggesting that Daniel needed help. Suggesting that he was in some sort of emotional distress. Messages designed to make Ashley respond. And they worked. You see, Ashley believed that she was talking to Daniel. She believed that he wanted to see her. She believed that he needed her. Now, what she didn't know was that Daniel had no clue that those messages were even being sent. And she certainly didn't know that she was being lured into a confrontation. Now, I understand that everybody is talking about the fight and what happened and how brutal it was. But looking back, this actually became the most important part of the case because it proves that the confrontation between Ashley and Antonetta was not spontaneous. There had been communication beforehand. There had been planning. There had been discussion. And there had been a deliberate effort to bring Ashley to a specific location. A location in which Antoinette was waiting. A location where emotions were at a boiling point. A location that would ultimately change 3 lives forever. Ashley responded to the messages. She agreed to meet. She left her home. Surveillance footage later captured her walking away. Quite frankly, what makes this footage so haunting, so to speak, is the fact that she's going, thinking that she's going to meet Daniel. She had no idea that she was heading towards the final hours of her life. She had no idea that multiple people were waiting for her. She had no idea that what started as a secret relationship was about to turn into a homicide investigation. More sadly than that, I would say, is she had no idea that she was about to no longer return home. The morning of August 11th, 2022 seemed ordinary. People were going to work. Children were enjoying their summer break. Residents moved in and out of the apartment complex like it was just another day. No one knew that they were about to witness a tragedy. And Ashley approached the apartment complex thinking that she was going to meet Daniel. Instead, She was walking straight towards Antonetta Stevens and Janine Gonzalez. They were waiting. They were watching. They were prepared. The messages had done exactly what they were intended to do. They brought Ashley there, and there was now no turning back. When Ashley arrived, the confrontation happened almost immediately. Words were exchanged. Accusations were thrown. The affair was no longer a secret. Everything was out in the open. For Antonetta, this was the person who she believed helped destroy her relationship. For Ashley, this was an angry partner that was looking to take revenge. The tension was explosive. And then the first blow had landed. What started as a confrontation quickly turned violent, and then it became brutal. The fight itself would later become one of the most important pieces of evidence in this case, not because of witness statements, not because of physical evidence, but because of portions being recorded. Yes, that's right. Someone decided to film it. What seemed like entertainment in the moment would later become evidence in a homicide investigation. The video captured more than violence. It captured mindset, intent, rage, emotion. As the fight unfolded, Ashley found herself outnumbered. And, witness statements and later interviews painted a chaotic and vicious assault. Punches, pulled hair, dragging, kicking, and repeated strikes. At one point, Ashley was forced to the ground. And while she was on the ground, the violence continued. What made this particularly disturbing wasn't just the violence itself. It was actually what was being stated and said at the same time. The words, the laughter, the humiliation, the cruelty. Throughout the attack, Ashley was mocked, insulted, and taunted about Daniel. Their relationship became the centerpiece of the attack. Every punch was connected to betrayal. Every insult connected to humiliation. Every action was connected to anger that had begun building for days. And then the statement that was made that investigators would ultimately focus on. Over and over again, Antonetta began to yell, "I will murder you."
I will murder you. I will murder you.
And again, "I will murder you." Followed by, "I'm going to murder you." At that time, those words might have sounded like rage, something that would be screamed or yelled during a fight. But then, Ashley died, and those words took a very different meaning, because suddenly, investigators weren't listening to the recording as evidence of an assault. They began listening to the recording as evidence of homicide. Eventually, the physical fight had ended, but the confrontation wasn't over. During the attack, Ashley's phone had been taken.
She want to get jumped.
Yeah, nobody gets jumped.
We jump her for the phone.
I'm done.
Nope.
I'm done.
We're jumping you.
I'm done.
We're jumping. You want the phone?
I'm done. I'm
Fight
ready.
both our asses.
No, I'm done.
You want the phone? Fight both our asses, bitch. You up.
For many people, that detail might seem minor, but it became another critical piece of the investigation. Ashley wanted her phone back. Badly. After the fight, Ashley went back to their apartment, already injured, already hurting, already struggling. But she still wanted her phone back. Witness statements later described her knocking on the door. pleading for it to be returned. At some point, witnesses described being shocked at her appearance. The damage was already becoming visible. She looked hurt, very hurt, but nobody realized how serious her injuries actually were. Not even Ashley. You see, some of the most terrifying things about internal injuries is that the damage can't be seen. No dramatic injuries, no visible signs of the facts that her organs were shutting down inside of her body. There are no dramatic wounds. There are no obvious signs. There is no visible evidence of the fact that her organs were shutting down inside of her body. And that's exactly what happened to Ashley. While people were arguing about phones and failed relationships, her body had already started shutting down. After retrieving her phone, Ashley left. She tried continuing to function, but very quickly she began to realize that something was wrong, incredibly wrong. She was having trouble breathing. She was in significant pain. Every movement became difficult. Every breath became work. Doorbell camera footage later saw Ashley returning home. The footage became heartbreaking evidence because viewers knew something that Ashley most likely didn't. She was dying. Step by step, she was struggling back to the safety of her home. But every passing minute, her internal bleeding continued. Her ribs had absorbed tremendous force. Her lungs were failing. Her liver had been punctured. The assault had done far more damage than anyone had realized. Even the people that assaulted her. Ashley eventually called her husband. The call was alarming. She sounded distressed, out of breath, scared. Something was clearly wrong. Her husband realized that this wasn't normal. Something was very wrong and began to rush home. One of the most tragic decisions Ashley made while seeking medical advice was while talking to the police. She lied. Not about her injuries, not about her pain, but about what happened. Ashley told police that she was attacked by strangers. Ashley told police that she did not know the people who attacked her. She denied the circumstances behind the attack, and she denied the affair. But why? Investigators would later suspect that she was probably trying to prevent the consequences of what the truth would actually be. The police became involved. Her husband would learn about the affair. Her friends would learn about the affair. Her family would learn about the affair. The secret would be exposed. So quite frankly, I think she was trying to rewrite the narrative, tell a different story, a story about random attackers and mistaken identity, a story that investigators would immediately recognize didn't match the story that they already had. And sadly, that phone call would be the last time officers would ever speak to Ashley. Because while she was trying to protect the secret, her situation was deteriorating rapidly. She was running out of time, and she didn't even know it. By the time Ashley Bocanegra arrived at the hospital, the doctors knew that her situation was very serious. Ashley wasn't simply bruised. Ashley wasn't suffering from minor injuries. Something catastrophic was happening to her body. Doctors began evaluating her situation, and what they discovered shocked everybody. Ashley had suffered fractured ribs, She had a lacerated liver, and internal bleeding had already had blood filling up different parts of her body. And perhaps what was most concerning was that her ability to breathe was deteriorating rapidly. Medical staff worked aggressively. They began to insert breathing equipment to help with her breathing. They administered treatment. They attempted to stabilize her condition, but the damage had continued to worsen. The force used during the assault had created injuries that were far more severe than anyone had realized. What started out looking as a fight outside of an apartment complex was turning very quickly into a severe medical emergency. And every passing moment, Ashley was losing her life. While doctors fought to save Ashley's life, her husband was trying to find out what actually happened. He received a phone call. He rushed home. He realized his wife was having difficulty breathing. He transported her to the hospital, and now he's sitting in shock, waiting, hoping, praying. Detectives later interviewed him at the hospital, and believe me, you guys, this interview was heartbreaking. At this moment, he believed that his wife was just randomly attacked and had absolutely no idea about the affair, no idea about a love triangle, no idea that another man was involved. To him, his wife was just simply his wife, a woman who had gone out earlier that day and somehow came home critically injured. When investigators asked him how his wife had become injured, he simply stated that his wife called him and said she was attacked by two random women. She said she had never seen them before. Detectives listened intently. Something clearly didn't add up because investigators had already spoken to the other two women who were involved. Something clearly didn't add up. The stories were incredibly different. Somebody wasn't telling the truth. The question was, who? Then, everything changed. In the early morning hours, doctors received devastating news. Ashley Bocanegra was dead. The woman at the center of the case had succumbed to her injuries. This now was no longer an aggravated battery case. It was now a homicide. For investigators, that changed everything. Every statement mattered more. Every inconsistency mattered more. Every situation and instance that day would now be examined through the lens of a death investigation. And almost immediately, investigators would start finding information that would completely change this case. Family members started revealing details about Ashley's relationship with Daniel Gonzalez. Details that Ashley herself had concealed. Suddenly, that random attack completely started to fall apart. Now, detectives understood that there was a motive. Jealousy, betrayal, humiliation, and potentially premeditation. Now, here's where it starts to get interesting, you guys, because as the investigators started looking into the phone records and written interviews, they discovered something that was very interesting. The meeting had not happened by chance. Ashley had been lured there Messages from Daniel's phone convinced her to come to the apartment complex. But Daniel wasn't the one that was sending those text messages. Antonetta Stevens was. The implications were enormous because now investigators weren't simply looking at a fight that got out of hand. They were looking at evidence suggesting that Ashley had been intentionally brought there to a location where an assault took place that she was brutally injured at. The discovery completely changed the direction of where the case was going, and then it eventually became one of the strongest pieces of evidence in the entire case. Now, with Ashley dead and new evidence emerging, detectives brought Antoinette Stevens and Janine Gonzalez in for formal interviews. First, both women attempted to minimize what happened. They described the confrontation as mutual, emotional, spontaneous. But detectives already knew more than they had realized. They had already seen surveillance footage and read text messages and spoke to people. And after reviewing portions of the recorded assault, contradictions started to appear in the statements. Janine Gonzalez grew especially talkative. Side note, you guys, I mean, in researching this, I know that Janine Gonzalez is probably 17 years old. I think she's a senior in high school. And my thoughts are very simple all the time when it comes to police encounters. You have the right to remain silent. This young lady obviously could not keep her mouth closed. And the first thing I would have personally done if it was me is the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, I would like to talk to my lawyer. I am not at all, trying to back either one of these young ladies, but lawyers help innocent people even more than they do guilty people. They're very good at their job. Lawyer up. I'm just saying, my goodness. Now, during the investigation, she admitted details that investigators had already suspected. She had acknowledged discussions about Ashley before the attack. She admitted to being present. She admitted involvement. And perhaps most importantly, she confirmed that Ashley had been expected. That's right, expected. This was not something spontaneous. Because if Ashley was expected, then someone knew she was coming. And if someone knew she was coming, then this had obviously been arranged. Throughout portions of the investigation, detectives noticed something unusual. At times, Janine seemed to be detached, as though she viewed the situation like something casual, like it was a fight, it was an argument, it was drama. Not the fact that it was a homicide investigation. Ashley Bocanegra was dead. Then everything changed. The situation changed. The atmosphere changed. The room changed. For the first time, the reality of the situation had begun to set in. The woman that they had just fought was gone. She wasn't recovering. She wasn't coming home. She wasn't able to tell her side of the story. She's dead. And now everyone involved would have to live with that reality forever. Eventually, prosecutors assembled a case, and evidence painted a disturbing picture. An affair, a discovery, a growing obsession with revenge, messages to lure Ashley to an apartment complex, a violent assault, serious internal injuries, and eventually the death of a woman. Antonetta Stevens and Janine Gonzalez were charged with serious offenses, including felony murder. Faced with evidence against them, both eventually entered guilty pleas. The legal process spared the victim's family a lengthy trial, but no plea deal could undo the damages that were tragically done to Ashley. No courtroom could bring her back. Nothing could be done to erase the tragic events that took place. Both women ultimately received lengthy prison sentences of 30 years. And just like that, a decision made in anger ruined multiple lives forever. When people hear about homicide cases, they often imagine hardened criminals, career offenders, violent predators, people who spend their lives hurting others. But many homicide cases don't begin that way. Many begin with ordinary people making emotional decisions, ordinary people allowing anger to become rage, allowing humiliation to become revenge, allowing revenge to become violence, and allowing violence to, quite frankly, become tragedy. Ashley Bocanegra lost her life. I mean, her family lost a daughter, her children lost, a parent, and two women who thought they were settling a score, quite frankly, lost decades of their own life because of an emotional decision. And because of that, they will spend a significant part of their life behind bars. All because nobody stopped to think about where the path that they were walking would ultimately lead. And after investigators uncovered everything, one thing still remained incredibly clear. Every crime has a reason. And this has been the Voice of Reason. I am Reason. Thank you for hanging out with me this evening. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you hanging out with me this evening. And good night.